Genesis 28, 10 to 19. Jacob left Beersheba and started towards Haran. At sunset, he came to a holy place and camped there. He lay down to sleep, resting his head on a stone. He dreamed that he saw a stairway reaching from earth to heaven, with angels going up and coming down on it. And there was the Lord standing beside him. I am the Lord, the God of Abraham and Isaac, he said. I will give to you and to your descendants this land on which you are lying. They will be as numerous as the specks of dust on the earth. They will extend their territory in all directions, and through you and your descendants, I will bless all the nations. Remember, I will be with you and protect you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done all that I have promised you. Jacob woke up and said, the Lord is here. He is in this place, and I didn't know it. He was afraid and said, what terrifying place this is. It must be the house of God. It must be the gate that opens into heaven. Jacob got up early next morning, took the stone that was under his head, and set it up as a memorial. Then he poured olive oil on it to dedicate it to God. He named the place Beth-El, the town that was once known as Luz. The word of God for the people of God.
Do you have a favorite Bible character? A favorite? Old Testament, New Testament, doesn't really matter. I do. I like Saul. You've heard me talk about this before, I'm sure. I like Saul, who becomes Paul, who founds all the churches and everything. And I like to be very specific what I like about Saul, who becomes Paul, because you've also heard me the last few weeks talk about how much I don't like what Paul writes. What I really like is how Saul, who was not a good character at all, who was persecuting the Christians, has this vision of Jesus and becomes this great figure in the Christian church. Because if God can do that with someone like Saul, I should be no trouble at all. Some of you maybe, I don't know. But no, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. But that's the thing about it is that what I like is this moment where Saul becomes Paul. There's some other things maybe I'm not so happy with, but I like that moment. It's a great moment. It's a great moment. Do you have a Bible character you don't like, though? Because I don't like Jacob. You probably knew I was going there, right? If my favorite character is somebody like Paul, sooner or later, character I don't like, Jacob. I don't like Jacob. I don't know how you can like Jacob. Look at Jacob. He starts out, first of all, if you follow the whole story of Jacob, right? He starts out when he's born holding the ankle of his brother, who is born first. The next part of the story that we hear about Jacob and Esau is that Jacob steals, well, he doesn't steal, he makes a deal. He makes a deal with Esau to get Esau's birthright. And you know what the deal is? I'll give you food. That's the deal. Give me your birthright and I'll give you food. You know that thing that we're all supposed to get because we need it? I'll trade you that for your birthright as the older son. The next thing we hear about Jacob is that he dresses up as Esau and cheats Esau out of the blessing of their father, who is old and blind and can't see and doesn't know who it is. So he dresses up as Esau. He comes in and he gets the blessing. You can guess by now that Esau's not too happy. And this is where we find Jacob in this story. He's running away. He's running away because his mother warned him because, of course, he was a mama's boy. Come on. You know he's going to be. He was the mother's favorite, so she warns him. And he runs off to their cousins and family in Haran. And this is where we find him in the story. He's on his way there. And what happens when he gets there? He makes a deal with one of his cousins to marry another one of his cousins if he'll work for him for 7 years. To be fair, Laban cheats him and sends him somebody else. So he has to stay another 7 years. Are you liking Jacob yet?
Businessman.
He's a businessman? Sure, let's say he's a businessman. He's all business, that's for sure. But that's not the end of the story, of course, is it? Because, of course, Jacob goes on to have his own favorite, a favorite one of his children that he treats so special apart from the others that the others all gang up on him, throw him in a pit, and he ends up in Egypt where, turns out, he saves the rest of the family when there's a famine, right? Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I think we know the story, don't we? We've done it here a couple of times. Yeah. But wait, that's not everything, is it? Because Jacob is also famously the one who wrestles with God, or God's official representative. We're not really sure. Could have been, an angel or something. But he wrestles with him, and then when dawn comes, he won't let go until God or the angel blesses Jacob. Again, got to have a deal. In fact, in this story, as the story goes on, the next thing that Jacob does is he says to himself, if God will give me all that stuff, maybe I could do this. It's all about the deal. He could have been on Celebrity Apprentice. It's all about the deal with this guy. And I can't like that. I just can't. And on top of that, and here's the worst part, right? On top of that, for some reason, God decides, I will bless this guy with being the father of the nation. He's the father of the 12 tribes, right? The sons. He's the father of Israel. In fact, his name changes to Israel because he is the beginning of this great nation of Israel. It's like God looked at Jacob and went, holy cow. I could do something real special with this guy. Wait a minute. Do you suppose that's what he was thinking when he looked at Saul? Of course, that's presuming that also that you approach this story and the story of Saul as you should get what you deserve. Right? And when does God give you what you deserve? As far as we think that. God gives because God knows to give. God gives to Jacob because God knows greatness will come. God gives to Saul because greatness will come. Truly, if God can do amazing things with people like that, imagine what God can do with me and you. See, that's not hard to understand, is it? We can get that. We can get our head around that. The problem is how we experience that. Ministers are sometimes asked, people who are in ministry are sometimes asked by people, how did you receive your call? And I like to answer, my phone rang, I took it out of my pocket, and I answered it. No, that's not what we mean, of course. Well, and see, that's the tricky part. What do you mean? Because I think that was probably what you might be hoping to hear, is that God spoke to me and said, thou shalt be a minister. And sure enough, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are people who've had that experience. That was not me. I thought, because I was Anglican at the time, I was going to be a priest when I was 15. Turns out that took me another 40 years to get there. But still, that's not how it works. That moment that Saul had with the flash of light and the vision of Jesus on the way to Damascus, that's not really how it works. You know this. don't you? Because if I were to ask you if there were a defining moment in your life, not everybody could answer, yes, there is. Here it is. I will tell you. It was this very moment. Sure enough, there will be some people for whom that will be this very moment. But the fact is that for some people, the answer is nope. I don't know. And for other people, it might be, well, it took me a while, but I think I figured this out. Or, I think there was, and here's how I'm approaching that, but I'm not really sure. Which one of those categories do you think Jacob falls into? See, that's part of the problem, is that we think that there is, you were probably wondering where these all went, weren't you? We think that there is that defining moment, that flash of light, experience. Just my luck to get one of these, okay. And things change, and then instantly things are different. But look at Jacob here. He's on the run. He's not a great guy. We know he's not a great guy, just in the part that we know already. Not a great guy. He's running away from his brother Esau, who's chasing him, and he stops in the wilderness on the way to his family in Haran. And he stops for the night. He finds, the expression, he finds a stone for a pillow, it's an expression. Really what it means is that in the wilderness in those days, it really behooved you to find somewhere to spend the night where you could put your back against something because of not just wild animals, but there were all sorts of people on the road who would be quite happy to take whatever you had, even if it was next to nothing. So you found yourself a spot, maybe with a large rock or some sort of outcropping or something from a bunch of other rocks, and that's where you put your back. So they had to come at you from the front. That's probably what that expression means, a stone for your pillow, because honestly, who puts their head on a stone for a pillow? But that's really what it means. So we're not talking about a stone that's, this big. We're talking about something bigger. So he lies down, he has a dream. And the dream is the famous Jacob's ladder. And there are all sorts of traditional explanations of what the ladder means. But see, I like to think that it's really quite simple. The ladder means that heaven and earth are connected. That when God says, I am with you, I am with you. We're connected. There's a very, very fine line, and we're connected. And the angels going up and down the ladder, of course, and note that they're going up and down. They're not going down and up. Do you think there's anything in that? That they're going up and coming down rather than going down and coming up? I don't know. But does it really matter if the whole point of the ladder is that we're connected? I think it's just important that we're connected. And in fact, that's made clear by the fact that then God's there. And God says, look what I'm going to do with you. And Jacob wakes up, and wow, obviously God is here, right in this spot. Just as we have traditionally believed, Hebrews traditionally believed, God lived in the temple in Jerusalem. We refer to churches the same way that Jacob refers to this place. Obviously God is here, so I will name this place, quite literally, Beth-El means house of God. That's why there's so many churches named Bethel. Is because it literally means house of God. And that's our tradition, isn't it? This is God's house, part of our tradition. So, Beth-El, and he sets up this stone that he was just had his head on, or, back to, whatever it was. He sets it up, and he anoints it. And of course, anointing is a sign of making holy. This is a holy and special place. God visited me, God is here, I will mark it. And then off he goes on the rest of his journey. So here's the thing. What do you think that means exactly? This is not going to work out for me today, of course, because, I can't get them to stand up. Anybody guess what I'm doing here yet? Oh, I hope not, because we're not going anywhere if that's what I'm building. I've always been fascinated by this story, and not because of the ladder, not because God visits Jacob and says, yeah, I know what kind of person you are, Jacob, but still, I'm going to do something awesome with you. That's not what fascinates me about this story at all. It's the thing that nobody really notices very much because it's just mentioned in passing. What did he build? Who said? I'm sorry? It looks like a house? Who said that? Thank you. Yes, it is. It's an Inukshuk. Oh, I had to tell you. Well, then my visual example is not good. Okay. Would have been better if we'd had a picture behind me, wouldn't it? The thing is, by the way, just while we're on that, the thing that you so frequently see, that we so frequently see, or that you might even have in your garden, we do actually, we have one. It's not an Inukshuk. It's an Inukgak. And there's a difference. And this is why this story fascinates me so much. The thing that you see so frequently everywhere that in fact, it was, remember the Olympics in Vancouver? Part of their logo was an Inukgak, not an Inukshuk. Here's why. The difference is, an Inukgak is a memorial. It means literally a figure that looks like a person. An Inukshuk is a figure that acts like a person. And the difference is that the first one, the Inukgak, is a memorial. It's something that you have to remind you of something that was. And an Inukshuk shows you the way. Right? That's the point of building them, is that either there's a hole in them somewhere and the hole shows you where you're going to the next one, or they might put messages in there, or there might be food even. But the point of it is quite literally that. It points the way. It shows you where to go. It's not just a marker that says, I was here. It's a marker that says, I was here and now I'm over there. That's the way. I don't think that Jacob built a marker that was a memorial. I think he laid the foundation for his own future with it. I think he built an Inukshuk. Because the point of him doing that wasn't just to say, God was here, God visited me, I'm done. That's that moment. It's done. This is the beginning. He might not have known it at the time that this was the beginning of something, but this was the beginning of his moment. You know that flash of light that Saul had and then things were instantly different? This is Jacob's moment. It's not a flash of light that changes everything instantly. It's the beginning of change. It's the beginning of the future, the next piece. Jacob may not have instantly changed himself or the world in that moment. But he goes on to be what God gifts him with. The beginning of the nation, the people, all the tribes. So, in your life, do you find that you're kind of like Saul, where you have that flash of light and things are different? Or do you find that when you experience God, God is more like a nudge in the right direction? God is more like, that moment is more like the beginning. You might look back on it and go, I remember when this all started. It was this moment. But that wasn't the end of it either. It was just the beginning of it. That's kind of like what my call to ministry was kind of like. I kind of thought I was going to be a minister when I was a kid, basically, and then avoided it for a lot of years, and then came to realize that was where I was headed. It's where I needed to be. It's what I needed to be doing. Do you have that experience in your life? It may not be an experience of coming to ministry, although allow me to remind you that you are all ministers. All ministers. It's the ministry of the people. We all do ministry. This is the moment that things begin to be different for Jacob, I think. I think that's what he marks it with. Something that says forward. We just did this in January, didn't we? Well, I guess we did it last fall. Our congregations decided to go in a new direction. And there's two ways you can look at this new direction. One is we decided to have a partnership so that we could share a minister, and that way we'll have a minister and everything will be good. Or it was a partnership that creates a vision for going forward in the future. One of those things is a memorial. I guarantee it. The other is not. It's probably one of the ironies of the name, isn't it? Think of how many churches called Bethel close. If it's just a memorial, where are we going? If we can see it as a way forward, if we can look at this at that moment that God said, wait, look through here. That's where you're going. This is kind of an ironic gesture too, by the way, because I'm gesturing to the open door. Because that is indeed where we will be, although actually we're going for coffee there, so we're not going to go out that door. But still, you get the point. Forward is the way. This is the sign. Forward.